Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something we have probably all experienced at some point, the profound psychological differences between needing a moment to breathe and using silence as a literal weapon. You know how it is? An argument gets heated, emotions are running high, and suddenly the room goes completely quiet. But what does that quiet actually mean for our mental health? We're going to unpack the vital distinction between healthy psychological boundaries and harmful communication.
So we really have to ask ourselves, is silence golden or is it a weapon? By the end of this explainer, you're going to have the exact psychological tools you need to navigate these tricky communication breakdowns in your own life. We'll be contrasting healthy self-regulation with manipulative control tactics so you'll know exactly when stepping back is a necessary reset and when it's actually causing deep psychological harm. Here's a quick look at our roadmap. We'll start with the anatomy of social pain, move right into the core contrast, examine the psychological scars, look at silence as self-defense, and then wrap things up with some actual scripts and steps. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the anatomy of social pain, or the physical reality of being ignored. We're going to explore what literally happens inside the human body when someone we care about shuts us out. Because as it turns out, that old saying about hurt feelings is way more literal than we ever realized. To really grasp the silent treatment from a clinical perspective, we first have to talk about ostracism, basically the act of excluding someone from a group. It actually has roots back in ancient Athens as a political tool, where citizens could literally vote to exile someone for 10 years. But today, it shows up in much more intimate settings, like our homes and our workplaces. Since human beings are fundamentally social animals, historically, being cut off from the group basically meant death. And our nervous systems? Well, they still react to it today like a massive threat to our survival, causing acute distress. Now, this is where it gets absolutely mind-blowing. Research backed by both the NIH and the Cleveland Clinic shows that being ignored literally registers in your brain as a physical injury. The dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, which is the exact same region of your brain that processes a broken bone or a burn, lights up when you experience social rejection. So when someone gives you the silent treatment, they aren't just frustrating you. On a neurological level, they're inflicting real, measurable pain. George Bernard Shaw totally hit the nail on the head when he said, "Silence is the most perfect expression of scorn." This right here gets to the clinical heart of why the silent treatment is the ultimate power play. When someone intentionally ignores you, they're sending a devastatingly clear message. You simply do not matter. It's a psychological tool meant to exert control by leaving the target completely powerless to actually resolve the conflict. Okay, moving to section 2. The core contrast between taking space and the silent treatment. This is literally the most crucial distinction we can make today. We need to hold up a mirror to these two very different ways we use silence, because clinically speaking, confusing them can be incredibly damaging. Taking space is like hitting a healthy pause button. It's communicated clearly, you tell the person exactly what you're doing, it has a time limit, and its entire psychological purpose is to regulate your emotions and reset so you can come back and resolve the issue. The silent treatment, on the other hand, is completely uncommunicated, indefinite, and designed purely to control or punish. Georgetown Psychology notes that taking healthy space actually proves you're committed to the relationship, while the silent treatment just screams pure rejection. One is healthy self-regulation, the other is manipulative control. Let's look at section 3, psychological scars and the damage of harmful emotional exclusion. We really have to impartially examine the clinical aftermath of what happens when silence crosses that line into a severe form of emotional abuse. The long-term mental health impacts of being repeatedly hit with the silent treatment are no joke. Victims often suffer from lowered self-esteem, depression, and profound attachment insecurity. They develop this intense anxiety and hypervigilance, basically walking on eggshells all the time because the behavior is just so unpredictable. They even start internalizing guilt, blaming themselves when they did nothing wrong, simply because they get zero explanation. Ultimately, you start equating love with conditional acceptance, getting trapped in this horrible cycle of trying to constantly earn back your partner's attention. But as psychologists, we have to objectively point out that not all silence is a calculated attack. Sometimes what looks exactly like the silent treatment is actually emotional flooding. This is a state of such severe distress that a person's nervous system completely shuts down, leaving them physically unable to communicate. They aren't retreating to punish you, they're just completely overwhelmed. Understanding this clinical nuance is so vital. If someone is flooded, they need help learning emotional regulation skills, not to be accused of abuse. Which brings us to section 4, silence as self-defense. We've talked about silence as a weapon and as a panic response, but there are absolutely times when mindful withdrawal is the healthiest possible choice you can make. Let's say someone is coming at you with venomous criticism, raising their voice and attacking your character with totally unfounded insults. In that specific scenario, staying silent is absolutely not a weakness. It's actually a super mindful defense mechanism. You're harnessing your calm to step away from that toxic energy. By choosing not to engage, you stop yourself from reciprocating their anger and adding fuel to the fire. It's recognizing that no rational conversation can happen right then and gracefully removing yourself to protect your own mental health. All right, section 5, scripts and steps. Let's transition from theory to practice. I want to equip you with the exact words to use when you find yourself right in the middle of these high-stakes communication breakdowns. Seriously, memorize these specific diplomatic phrases. If you're the one getting overwhelmed and you need to regulate, try this script. I need 30 minutes to calm down. I'll come back after dinner. It names what you need, sets a time frame, and promises you'll return. On the flip side, if someone is pulling away from you, try saying, I notice you're not speaking. Are you needing space or are you upset? This gently probes the withdrawal without sounding accusatory, and it invites them to actually clarify their intent. But what if they refuse to answer, and it's super clear they're using the silent treatment to punish you? Here's your go-to diplomatic script for that exact moment. I'm open to talking when you're ready, but I can't engage if I'm being ignored. Notice what that does. You're establishing a firm, healthy boundary. You're stating you want to connect and repair things, while simultaneously flat out refusing to participate in a manipulative dynamic. Now, if this kind of unhealthy silence is a chronic issue, the Cleveland Clinic suggests these 4 actionable steps to rebuild the connection. First, assess your goals and your physical and emotional safety. Second, use those assertive communication scripts we just covered. Third, if you're the one prone to withholding communication, you have to accept the harm you've caused your partner. Just drop the defensiveness. And fourth, seek mental health counseling. Breaking deep-seated psychological patterns usually requires a professional to help rebuild that connection. And just to put into perspective how serious this really is, it's not just about minor relationship drama. A major study showed that 87% of school shootings between 1993 and 2001 had ongoing social exclusion and ostracism as a major contributing factor. When human beings are systematically ignored and made to feel invisible, the psychological pressure builds up, sometimes with totally devastating societal consequences. The clinical stakes of ostracism at every level of society are extraordinarily high. So it all leaves us here. Whether you're dealing with a partner, a coworker, or a friend, I want to leave you with this provocative thought as you navigate conflict moving forward. Are you using silence to reset your own mind, or are you using it to punish someone else's? Remember, needing space is a universal, healthy psychological need. The silent treatment for sure is not. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this helps you build healthier, more communicative boundaries in your own life.